And welcome in, everybody, to the Make the Money and Run podcast, the Friday baseball show, October 1st, 2021. October 1st, that means it's the last weekend of the regular season. What a week it's been. I'm Vasi Vatapart. He's Charlie O. This is the Friday edition, as we said, of the Make the Money and Run baseball show. Lots to talk about, Charlie. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, but you know what? October already, man. But Vasu, I was just looking at the schedule for the playoffs in the World Series. The World Series could actually end in November.
Right. Well, it's done that before, though.
I know, but still, there's something wrong with that.
I know. Well, I mean, it could have ended up later if the wild card had gone last year, like it did last year, 2 out of 3.
That's true.
To open it up. So it could have ended up later, which I still think is a better way to do the wild card, but that's for another conversation, another CBA agreement, which is going to happen.
Well, that's the best way to do that is to shorten the season, but that's a real long discussion there.
That's not going to happen because all the records and everything get changed. All right, we're here every Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Right there, you see the times. If you're viewing us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, thank you very much. And if you miss any of the broadcasts live, you can download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Don't forget, every day by 6 o'clock Eastern, we have our updated news and selections for the day and night as we go through the schedule here for baseball season, as we wind down the last 3 days. What a week it's been for baseball. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino, Silicon Valley's longest-serving British pub and restaurant, celebrating 40 years of the best food and drink, best British food and drink. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. All right, let's get to baseball. The only race left is between the two teams in baseball. The Giants and the Dodgers have the best record in baseball. The Giants got their 105th win yesterday. The Dodgers got their 103rd win last night, late on the West Coast. For those of you on the East and around the world, didn't get a chance to see it. The Giants get a walk-off win from Lamont Wade to beat the Arizona Diamondbacks 5-4. They came back from 3-0 down to knock the magic number down to 2. The Dodgers get an 8-3 win over the Padres. They end up sweeping the Padres again for about the third time this year after it was so promising to start the year for the Padres, but it didn't end up that way. I think it was 8-3. The final ended up in the Dodgers score. So, Charlie, National League West, a lot at stake here, even though both teams are in the playoffs and all the playoff teams are set. A lot at stake because the division winner gets to go right to the NLDS, and the second place team will end up being the number one wild card. So the St. Louis Cardinals are sitting back on their laurels right now, waiting, and they've already set their rotation. They said Adam Wainwright's going to start on Wednesday night in the wild card game. The way the Giants and Dodgers have it set up. By the way, there's no Giants line tonight yet. We'll get to baseball lines in a second. There's no Giants line yet as they're deciding who they're going to throw tonight. My guess is it's going to be Kevin Gossman because that would put them in a Wednesday or Friday format for next week for the division series. If they win the division or if they end up losing the first place lead, they'll be in the wild card section. So the Giants will host those San Diego Padres this weekend, who gave them a tough time the last time they were in Oracle. They split a 4-game series. And the Milwaukee Brewers are in an interesting position as well, too. They've already locked up number 2. They've had it locked up for a week. They are going to be without Devin Williams. We mentioned that yesterday. Devin Williams, the right-hander for the Milwaukee Brewers. He sets up Josh Hader in the 8th inning, so they're going to have to maneuver that pitching staff a little bit around because I just don't think they hit enough. And if they don't get the pitching, it could be a short exit for the Brewers as well, too. They're going to host the Atlanta Braves in that opening round as the Braves clinched the NL East yesterday with a sweep over the Philadelphia Phillies. They beat the Phillies, and they eliminated them from any playoff contention in the NL East, and they were already eliminated 2 days ago from the wild card scenario. All right, Charlie, back to the NL West. The Brewers going to LA this weekend. The Padres going to San Francisco this weekend. Obviously, a lot of excitement in both cities. Division title at stake, the wild card at stake, first-round playoff action at stake. Give me your takes.
Well, I think, first of all, I think the Giants drew the better card there because they're playing a team that has really no dog in the hunt. I don't think San Diego is going to come in and just lay down, but this is a meaningless series to them. They come in, 78 and 81, 27 games out. They're going to have a tendency to probably play some guys that normally wouldn't play. They're not going to have a whole lot of motivation. It's probably going to be a lot about individual statistics. I mean, I'm just being real here. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what it's going to be. So they're not going to be as much competition as the Dodgers are going to face against the Brewers, because the Brewers are going to come in and they're going to be wanting to tune up for their part in the playoffs. So the Dodgers have a much tougher road here as they move on down. And let's face the facts. The Giants have a 2-game lead. So they would really have to crumble in this final series at home for the Dodgers to overtake them. So it's good. It's going to be interesting, but it would really at this point take a Giants collapse for the Dodgers to make it into the playoffs as the Western champions at this point.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And that's pretty incredible when you look at that and you look at a team with right now 103 wins, to think that they would have to go into the playoffs as a wild card team. I have to tell you, Vasu, I've never been one to talk about reseeding until this season. And you know I'm not a Dodgers fan, but I look at that and I look at 103 wins and I'm going, oh my gosh, how can we put a 103 win team in a 1-game wild card playoff? It can't happen. I'm sorry. Baseball has to do something here. They've got to figure something out. You can't penalize a 103-game win team by putting them in a 1-game playoff.
No, I agree with that to the point. I mean, the NBA was talking about reseeding. The NFL reseeds after every round. I get that part, but at least it's not 1993 where the Giants won 103 games and didn't even sniff the playoffs because the Atlanta Braves won 104. We're thankful for everybody on Facebook. Frank O'Neill, my buddy Frank O'Neill. Sorry, Vasu, lover of the blue. Dodgers are done this year. So says Frank's a Giants fan. Well, they're not done, sir. They still have the playoffs to go next week, whatever happens. But thanks for tuning in. Jeremy, we know Jeremy from the press boxes. It is ridiculous and should reseed. Okay, so he's with Charlie on that as well, too.
Thanks Jeremy.
Thanks, Frank, as well, too. I agree. I mean, I agree with that. But you know what? It devalues the division. I mean, they got to figure out some way to do it without devaluing the division at all. I think the Padres, if they got any pride left, the way they started off House of Cards and all the hype that they had, if they end up under 500, that's going to be, they would need to sweep this weekend in order just to get to 81-81. They are 1-9 in their last 10. The previous 10 before that, they were 2-8. So 3-17. And talk about taking yourselves out of a catbird seat position of the wild card to not even be able to sniff it this week. So maybe they have some pride left. They've got some guys on that team. Tatis going for 40 home runs. Machado is like 3rd or 4th in the league in RBIs. He's had a pretty good year, even though he's had his own issues. And they've got some good pitching, so we'll see what happens. And they do play the Giants tough. It has become a rivalry, not like Giants-Dodgers, but it has become a rivalry. As far as Milwaukee goes, yeah, they need to tune up, and they got to get some things going here to make sure that they're going to be able to get to face Atlanta, because Atlanta right now is really, really hot. They just swept the Phillies, and I know the Phillies kind of underperformed this year, but the fact is that the Atlanta Braves are probably as hot as anybody going into the playoffs. They've won 6 in a row, 9 out of the last 10. The Brewers nearly got swept by the Cardinals this week on the way for the Cardinals to get to the wild card scenario. But as we look at the wild card scenario, they're the St. Louis Cardinals right there waiting for San Francisco and Los Angeles for the top spot in the wild card. The Braves, with their win over the Phillies, actually that magic number is over now. That's eliminated. I forgot to update that, but the Braves are in there. So now we look at the weekend this weekend. The Milwaukee Brewers and the Dodgers, the Padres and the Giants, the only race left, the only 2 games that really matter as far as the National League goes, other than tune-ups for Atlanta and Milwaukee and St. Louis. They're going to play this weekend as well, too. We'll get to the lines in a second. But overall National League takes, Charlie, between the National League West and then you got St. Louis kind of sitting in a catbird seat, even though they're in the number 2 position. And then here's the Atlanta. By the way, I didn't know this. Freddie Freeman's a great player, and we know he struggled in April last year, and he had the bout with COVID last year where he was really sick. Freddie Freeman, and this is without Acuna, he led the National League in runs scored. I would understand RBIs, but runs scored for Freddie Freeman has been a big boon. And the 4 outfielders that they had to replace them, we mentioned it last week, have pretty much equaled what Ronald Acuna Jr.'s production would have been in the second half between Jorge Soler and Jock Peterson and I forgot the other two guys that are out there. Adam Duvall, they got in the middle of the year as well too, and Adam Duvall was having a big year with Miami before they got him for basically nothing too. So, we're not going to talk about the season will be over by the time you and I get together again next week. So let's break down the playoffs a little bit here in the National League.
Well, let me just jump in here for a second on the Braves. The Braves did not have a winning record this season until August the 6th. Now you think about that for a second. They won their division, but they didn't have a winning record until August the 6th. Now that is a team that's what you call recovery there, if you've ever seen it. So this is a team that's hot. I mean, they are peaking at just the right time. And part of winning baseball, especially under the playoff format, is peaking at the right time. And they are peaking at the right time. And Vasu, we talked about it. We've talked about it for the last month, and it seems like we've talked about it longer than that. We've talked about St. Louis. We were watching St. Louis. They just kept hanging around, and they kept seemingly getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And all of a sudden, here they are. Boom. They clinched the spot. They're there. And you look at, of course, that ridiculous 17-game win streak.
Not to mention they came out of the All-Star break hot too. I think They had a 6, 7, or 8 game winning streak because they were dead to rights. They were 13.5 back in Milwaukee, and they were 7 or 8 back in the wild card. And they were 3rd or 4th, and we were kind of saying, maybe they can make a run. None of these teams are really that good. But if you go on a 17-game winning streak, you can expect to make some games up because that's just an unreal winning streak to go on. And they basically clinched very easily.
And that's more than just playing weak competition. I mean, baseball just statistically winning 17 games in a row is off the charts, because we always talk about in playing series, you need to win 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3. And then you throw a 4-game series in there and you're hoping to win 2 out of 4. So you take all of those odds and then you throw in a 17-game win streak and you go, okay, that's, those that's not just luck there. That's playing great baseball. And that's what they've done. And I'll tell you, in a 1-game playoff, and it looks like it's going to be them and the Dodgers. I mean, let's just be honest. The one thing the Dodgers have got going for them is it looks like that's going to be in LA. And we know that the Dodgers know how to use Chavez Ravine to their advantage. And so that will be their saving grace. I would have to bet the other way if that game were going to be in St. Louis, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they've had a tough time in St. Louis. The Giants have had a tough time with St. Louis as well, too. So, I mean, that's a very formidable opponent, even though it didn't look that way going into these last 3 weeks. But they've set it up right now. And if, in fact, it does hold true, it looks like the Giants will win the division with one more win. Even if the Dodgers sweep the Giants, if the Dodgers sweep and the Giants end up losing 2 out of 3, then what a day we're going to have on Monday. I mean, that's still a possibility, very light possibility right now, the way the Padres are playing, and we don't know how Milwaukee's going to come in. But having watched Craig Counsell the last 7 or 8 years, he's a total baseball traditionalist. He's not going to jake it for the sake of baseball. That's a bad look for baseball if he does that. And plus, they need to tune up as well too. They've got to get their pitching staff in order. They got to get their bullpen in order now that Devin Williams is out. All right, Vasi Vada Party, Charlie O here. Make the money and run Friday baseball show sponsored by Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out at BritanniaArmsDienza.com, 408-252-7262. Don't forget to check our social media posts out, 6 o'clock Eastern. Every day we get our posts out. You can reach us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All right, let's hit the lines here a little bit. Actually, you know what? Let's take a break. We'll go to the American League in a second. Let's take a 30-second break. We'll come back, talk about the American League, and we'll go over some of the key matchups and the key lines in baseball for today and this weekend. Vasu and Charlie here on the Friday Baseball Show for the Make the Money and Run podcast. See you in 30. Welcome back to this second segment of the Make the Money and Run podcast. Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. This is the Friday baseball show. Coming up after the baseball show, we'll have the full hour Friday football show as week 4 got started in the NFL. Thanks to everybody on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you missed any of it, you can download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast outlets: Apple, Google, iHeart, Spotify, SoundCloud. Don't forget to interact with us on social media every day by 6 o'clock. We'll have the latest news. You can email us as well, mtmarpodcast@gmail.com. Both Charlie and I have Facebook and Instagram pages as well. The Britannia Arms is our sponsor. 40 years celebrating Silicon Valley's best British food and drink of Silicon Valley. You know the address by now, BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. Great place to go into week 4 and week 5 of college football and week 4 of the NFL. 20 TVs they have now in the venue, and it's going to be a great time to go. We're going to hope to get a show out there as soon as I talk to Mike and Tony. We're going to get a show out there on a Sunday morning before the game start at some point. All right, we talked about the National League. Let's get to the American League. The Astros got a victory last night over Tampa Bay. They won 3-2. Tampa Bay won the night before. They clinched the best record in the American League, but now the win last night by Houston has given them the American League West. Still not sure about their pitching, but offensively they are right there with anybody in baseball, certainly anybody in the American League. Quick thought on Houston, Charlie, going into the playoffs.
You know what? They always scare me. They do. I mean, they're such a talented ball club. I know the pitching is a little iffy, but I'll tell you, in a short series, sometimes you could sneak through with iffy pitching if your bullpen will come through for you a little bit. But this team will score runs. I mean, run differential this year plus 200. Think about that. Plus 200. They can put runs up. And one of the things that you can do for your pitchers is if you can score early, even iffy pitchers can start to roll back and get real strong if you give them early leads. And I think that will be a real key for the Astros in these games. If they can give their pitchers early leads, that will make their pitching staff a much stronger pitching staff.
Framber Valdez goes tonight. They host the A's in a 3-game series, which at the beginning of the year looked like it was going to be a winner-take-all type series. But now with the clinching and Oakland already being eliminated 2 days ago with their poor showing against the Mariners this year, 4-15 against the Seattle Mariners this year, that hurt any chances of the American League West and of the wild card. Speaking of the wild card, as we move on here on the Friday baseball show, how about this scenario we've got going on in the wild card? Last week, there were 6 teams that were still eligible. Now we're down to 4. The Yankees beat Toronto last night, really hurt Toronto's chances. Boston loses 2 out of 3 to the Baltimore Orioles, and Seattle had the day off yesterday after sweeping Oakland, as we just said. And then Toronto, with that loss, they're 1 game back. So the Yankees are 2 games up on the Red Sox and Seattle, both Boston and Seattle, 89-70, the Yankees 91-68, and Toronto at 88-71. Toronto has Baltimore this weekend. Boston is going to Washington this weekend, and Seattle is hosting the Angels as well. And the Rays and Yankees is not a gimme series by any means, because they are very familiar with each other, especially after all the hubbub last year in San Diego during the division series, the Chapman incident, Michael Brosseau, all that going on. Tampa Bay will be there to play for the Yankees because, one, it's Kevin Cash. He's a baseball guy just like Craig Counsell is, and they will put forth their best effort because this wild card really hinges on Tampa Bay, the Angels, the Washington Nationals, and the Baltimore Orioles, believe it or not. So we'll see how this all shakes out. But I mean, let's face it here, Charlie. We got the Yankees and the Rays. That's a good matchup this weekend. Boston is going to Washington. I'm sure Washington has players on that team, and that the way the Red Sox played against the Orioles, I mean, it's no gimme for the Red Sox to go into Washington and not take 2 out of 3 or even get swept the other way. Who knows? And then Seattle has the Angels. They've had a pretty good year against the Angels. Their best team that they played this year, obviously, was the Oakland A's in that division. But here they are, still not hanging on. They're right in there. I mean, they're tied with Boston for that second wild card spot. And any bad situation that goes on for Boston or New York, they could end up hosting a wild card game if it all turns out. They're only 2 back of the Yankees right now.
Yeah, I just think Seattle's position is incredible. We kept waiting for the typical Seattle slip, if you will, which always seems to happen in July, where we go, wow, Seattle was great. And then they just kind of slide away. And it didn't happen this year, which, the way they've been trying to build this ball club over the last several years, we kept thinking this shouldn't happen. Well, finally this year, it didn't happen. And they've hung in there. And Vasu, you're absolutely right. One of the reasons why they're in the position that they're in right now was their domination of the Oakland A's. The A's, I know the A's had some problems, but I was looking at some numbers today in the stats. I know Bassett got hurt, okay, but Frankie Montas, if you look at the stat leaders, Frankie Montas literally in pitching stats is in the leaders in every important pitching stat: wins, strikeouts, complete games, quality starts. I mean, they had all the advantages there. Okay, so you can't just write it off to one guy getting hurt. And thank goodness he's going to be all right. But Seattle has earned this spot. Okay, they didn't back into it. So it really is incredible. Now, I think the Angels will come in. I think they'll play them tough. I don't think they're going to be a lay down there. The one thing that you look at is it and you say the Blue Jays versus Baltimore. So you go, well, the Blue Jays, they drew the good card there. Well, no, they didn't. For two reasons. Number one, we know the O's really gave the Red Sox a bad time. Plus the fact, folks, this is the Orioles World Series.
Right.
Because at the end of this series, it's done. These guys are going fishing. They're going home. It's over. So they would like nothing better than to eliminate the Blue Jays. This would make their year. They could go home and go, well, at least we knocked them out. So this is not going to be an easy series for the Blue Jays. So you look at all of that and you go, wow, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But Vasu, the thing that is amazing now, it's not likely. I wouldn't go to your local wagering window and put money down on this. But we still have a scenario here that exists where all four of these teams these wildcard teams could end up in a dead tie. And then we would have to have a
game 163 and game 164. Yeah.
Yeah. And then decide who was going to be in the wild card, which see, and this is why I hear people go, well, the wild cards and all this stuff. You know what? This is why it's fun. I don't like the one game wild card. I prefer to see a 2 out of 3 game wild card. But this is why it's fun, because here we are on the 1st of October and we're still talking about races. And this is why this concept is great.
Yankees, Rays, Boston, Baltimore, Seattle, the Angels. I'm sorry, Boston and Washington, Toronto, Baltimore, and Seattle and the Angels this weekend. If they all end up tied, they take the head-to-head records in a round robin, and they group them A, B, C, and D, and A and B will play each other, C and D will play each other, and then they'll play again on Tuesday, which will move the wild card game back to Wednesday, and then throw the whole schedule off. Throw my flights off, maybe, if that's the case, because I got American League games this year. So we'll see how that goes.
But from our radio schedules either.
Yeah, I know they don't care about that. But anyway, you know what? The Angels and Mariners series is going to be interesting because they will draw a lot of people because Seattle and the state of Washington is a big Japanese population, and Shohei Ohtani always gets a big draw wherever he goes, but never more so than it was the last time they were in Seattle, and he has killed the Mariners as well. And speaking of killing teams, Toronto has routinely put double-digit runs up on the Orioles this year, including a 22-run game that they had a few months back on a Sunday where Guerrero just went off, I think 3 bombs and 9 RBIs and a 22-7 win over Baltimore in Baltimore. So I'll be interested to see what happens with that. Gosh, I just can't imagine a scenario where it's not going to end up with at least team 2 or wild card spot 2 having to play at 163. If it stands right now, if Boston and Seattle all win, then we got 163 on Monday. And by the way, that game would be, I think it would be in Seattle. I think Seattle had it with their season series against Boston. We'll check that out and we'll get it to you. We'll get it to you on the 6 o'clock update. The head-to-head series between Boston and Seattle, they did play 6 games this year, so it's an even number of games. They could be 3-3 for all I know. So we'll go from there. All right, let's get to the baseball lines here a little bit. The National League games today, we'll just run through them real quick. Cincinnati at Pittsburgh, Miami hosting Philadelphia, Atlanta and the Mets, which would have been a good series. The Rockies at Arizona and the Dodgers in Milwaukee. We talked about Clayton Kershaw against Eric Lauer, 2 left-handers that have had pretty good years. Kershaw, of course, coming off injury. Eric Lauer has been a very good surprise for them in the 4th spot. We do not have a line for the Giants game yet. In fact, Charlie, why don't you talk about the National League a little bit while I look up the Giants to see if we have a line on the Giants a little bit.
You know what? ESPN is showing a line right now of Giants minus 195. That would be and an over-under of 8.5.
Here we go. Okay, yeah. I have it on my site,
that would be from Caesars, I think, if it's on ESPN. So that would be there. And, of course, that Dodgers-Brewers, Caesars has that at the Dodgers minus 216 and an over and under of 8 at this point.
Well, I have it on the actual site where people actually go put money down on it as San Francisco minus 200 against the total is, let me get to that here, 9 with DeStefani and Avila, Pedro Avila. So it sounds like a bullpen game right now as I type this in here. But the way the Padres are going right now, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. And then you go up to up the coast or down the coast to LA, and then you've got Lauer and Kershaw going tonight as well too. Both games go at the same time, pretty much. I think the Giants go at 9:30, the Dodgers go at 10 o'clock on the Eastern time zone. So very interesting. Really, the only thing left in the National League, other than I guess St. Louis is locked into where they are. The Braves and Brewers are locked into where they are. Number 2, just the number 1 seed and the number 4 seed, getting ready for next week in baseball. All right, we move on to the American League now. The Yankees in Tampa, 120, 8.5. McClanahan, Cortez. Steven Matz is a 325 favorite. That's the domination they've had over Baltimore. That's a lot of money. 325 on Toronto with Steven Matz, 10 the total. You might look at the over. Eshelman, the right-hander for Baltimore. Cleveland, Texas. Minnesota, KC. Detroit, Chicago trying to get a tune-up with Lance Lynn. He was hurt early in the year as well. And then in the American League, we have the Houston Astros are going to play the A's. They are going to go tonight at 8 o'clock. And then Seattle, the big one in Seattle in the Great Northwest, Marco Gonzalez, who's come back from injury in the second half against Jose Suarez, the other left-hander. He's given Seattle fits. 153, 7.5 there, Charlie.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. And, the Mariners, again, the Mariners could use some competition there if they're going to make it into the playoffs. You don't want to just walk in. You want to have some competition going in because you want to be gritty. You want to be ready going in. But I like their chances. I really do. I think Boston's going the wrong direction. And it's interesting, Boston got hot and we're going, okay, here they come. And now they're backing up, and it's, I'm not crying crocodile tears. I mean, I know there are a lot of Red Sox fans out here, but they haven't played well. And so they're getting what they deserve at this point.
They're going to Washington. Eduardo Rodriguez, who's struggled in the second half, going to go up against Josh Rogers, young pitcher for the Washington Nationals. They're hosting the Red Sox. They just got done with Baltimore, as we said, losing 2 out of 3 with it. All right, it's going to be an interesting weekend this weekend. We will have it all for you on Monday when we come back on the Monday podcast, 3 Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific. Don't forget, we have the Friday football show coming up right now. Thanks to the Britannia Arms of Cupertino for sponsoring us as well. 40 years in Silicon Valley. Britannia Arms, Deanza.com, 408-252-7262. And don't forget to check out our social media pics by 6 Eastern on all our social media outlets, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and you can email us, mtmarpodcast@gmail.com. It's going to be a fabulous baseball weekend. We have not forgotten about any of the football. We're going to get to that in about a minute. So come back with us in about 2 minutes, and you will be in with us on the Friday football show. For Vasi Vada Party, For Charlie O, I'm Vasi Vadaparty. We will see you in a couple minutes on the Make the Money and Run podcast. Thanks, everybody.